Okay, so now we've had a look at the angled brush, which was like this one, and we ended up with this. I'll hold it a bit closer so you can see. Okay, so that's your angled brush. We're going to now look at how to make a detail brush. Oh, no, actually what we'll do is we'll do a grass brush, right? So this is a jagged brush. Now you might want to make multiples of these in different shapes. But you can see you've got quite a few hairs there. Again, this is a watercolour brush. And you can tell because it's a dark colour and that it's soft and there's excess fine hairs. So it's a watercolour brush. Now, you can do one of two things. You can either go at it with a pair of scissors and you literally just go in and just start to trim at an angle. Go in with your scissors and start to trim at an angle. And you'll see that the hairs start to just go in very slowly and just start to trim out a few hairs. And there we have it. Oops, sorry, couldn't see that one. Okay, so you can see it's gone all jagged. Now my recommendation in this instance is to paint with it first and then trim it further if necessary. Okay, but I've got a few brushes here, so I'm going to do a minimal jagged brush, and then I'm going to do, because I've got another one here, so it's the same sort of brush, watercolour, lots of fine hairs. And this one I'm going to cut out longer bits. Now again, just pinch it so it goes flat, and then just go in and go down the hair a lot further down and repeat the exercise. And again, just go in carefully, remove a few, and then look. So I'm taking the point of the scissors further down the brush like that. Can you see? Making some longer marks like so. And you won't actually see these until you apply the paint. So again, like I said, go in slowly, take a few out, test the brush, and then decide if it's what you're after. You can always remove more brush hairs, but you can't put them back. So I'm just going to take a few more out just there. I've done this before several times, so I sort of know what I'm looking for, but when you're doing it, if you just, like I said, just go slowly, take a few out, and then use the brush. Okay. Now, another way of doing all of these brushes is to use a knife. And I've got a knife set with lots of different blades, lots of different shapes, and they're all very sharp. You need a sharp blade for this. So if you're not sure about using these things, then don't use them, just use your scissors. But they're really good for being very accurate. So I'm just going to zoom in a little, just 1 second. You can have a look at all the lovely hairs. And I'm just going to lay the brush down, and I'm going to press the hairs and spread them a bit and draw some out like this. Okay, and I'll do that with my blade. I'm going to draw a few out like that, can you see? And then I'm going to go as close to the ferrule, this is the ferrule, as possible, and I'm going to nip them off And hopefully my blade is sharp enough. There, see? You want to get rid of as many excess hairs as possible. Brush it to one side. You can see there's still some poking out there. I'm going to just trim those off. And basically, that's all you do. You just keep going until you've got a brush that gives you the amount of hairs that you need. So I'm going to make a really fine detailed brush. And this could be used for eyelashes, very fine fur on animals. So you can see now how much that, I've got a little fuzzy bit at the bottom, but that will be a very fine result in the end. Okay, I've got another brush that I'm going to do the same thing with. I'm going to leave this one the way it is. And I'm going to take one of these, let's have a look. This one, no, this one. Now this one is a really old acrylic brush. Actually, it's a multi-use brush. It's like it's supposed to be for watercolour, acrylic and oils, but I don't like using brushes for all of those mediums at the same time. I think use your brushes just for one thing only. So when you see something that says multiple use brush, it never works. If you use your brush for oils and then you try and use it for watercolour, there's no way you could get that brush clean enough so that it works efficiently for watercolour. So it's much better just to buy brushes that are for specific jobs, okay, and keep them for those jobs. But this has got really tired. It's got all very splayed at the end. It's a very old brush. I mean, it's done a good job. But what I want to do is the same thing. I'm just going to reduce it down by about half, like that. Getting rid of some of those wayward hairs, like that. Now that's really tiny. I'm just going to pull, there's just a group there. And then, because it's splaying at the end, I'm going to give it some shape as well. Now, if this is the first time you've done any kind of brush manipulation, I would recommend that you use very old brushes, really tired brushes, or cheap brushes. Don't go, some people will buy new brushes and manipulate them, but you know, if you're not experienced at this, if you've not had a bit of practice, you could do a lot of damage. I mean, if you end up throwing a few away, then so be it, but you know, just practice a little on something that's not expensive. So in we go now, and you can just see there's a couple of hairs that side and a couple of hairs that side, which is sort of sticking out a little bit and creating this V shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my knife down there like that and try and trim them so that they're not projecting out so far, and that there is a sort of shape coming from those hairs working together. Can you see? I just got it then. So I've cut an angle almost into my brush head. You might have to turn it slightly on the side in order to get them, and even then, because the brush ferrule is sticking above, it's not touching the paper here, whereas the body of the brush is. If it's too difficult, then go in with your scissors and trim it that way. Okay, and you can sort of trim it to a lovely point. And now, as a result, I've got a nice points on my brush. You can see it's a little bit lopsided, but that doesn't matter. you know, because you can still use it as a fine pointed detail brush for whatever purpose you need it for. The other thing is, wear your glasses. If you're a bit short-sighted like I am, then put your glasses on so that you can see what's going on with all the little tiny hairs. So there we go. There's a nice fine pointed detail brush. Again, I'm going to try it out in a minute so we can have a look and see how it performs. So what else? Right, we've done all those. I've got one brush left. What should I do with this one? Okay, so I'm going to make what is called a blade brush. What have we got? Let me just see. I'm trying to think. It's also called another name and I can't remember. Oh, like a dagger brush almost. Okay, so with that, and it's really good for making petals and things like that. All you do, you want to cut it right from the bottom of the ferrule all the way up to the top left hand or top right hand corner. So ready? I'm just going to splay it a little, try and flatten it a little bit like that, and then cut. I'm cutting it quite gently to begin with. I'm going to try it with the knife, I think, just so I can get a little bit more accuracy. There. Again, I'll show you how they perform. So that's just a brush that's cut on a very severe angle. Okay, as you can see. All right, so I've done a few there. I think now is probably the time to try them out. Okay, so now to try the brushes. So the first one we started with was the angle brush. So I'm just going to do a little drawing of the brush like this. And I've got a rough and a smooth paper here. And I'm going to try them both out and see how they work with each one. So this is the mark that the angle brush makes, okay? Okay, so you can see that the angle left behind is quite gentle. So let's try a line. Again, it leaves an angle. Just experiment with it, see what it does. Use it on the end. Okay, so you can see that leaves quite a nice angle, and it might be useful for all sorts of different things. For example, brickwork and angles on rocks and things like that. I did another brush which I didn't show you how to do, and I just cut a V out of it. So I forgot to do that one on the instructions. So it's just cut a V out of the brush head. Let's see what that does. So I'm just using watercolour here. That's quite nice actually. There we go. Tips. So you get 2 lines. So this is why you should practice with your brushes, just to see what sort of marks you're getting out of them once you've cut them. This is the detail brush, the very fine one that I cut that comes to a point like this. And then what you can do is you can make your adjustments appropriately. Yeah, that's not too bad. Depending on how much pressure I put on, depends on how much of the hair picks up the paint on the surface of the paper. Okay, so that's not too bad actually. I might remove a couple of hairs from that one. This was just the long thin brush that I just reduced. So I didn't cut it on an angle like this. So it's more rounded at the end. Like that. Okay, let's try that one out. So that's leaving a slightly thicker line, as you can see, but still quite delicate and a much nicer brush than it was previously, so I'm pleased with that one. This was the sort of dagger shape. Sometimes it's called a sword, but it goes like this. So it looks very similar to the scalpel actually. So it's got a dagger type mark. So I'm going to put it flat. You can see how it draws to a point, which is really nice. And it also leaves nice marks just as a shape. So flat again. Look at that, that's nice. Okay, you can also use the edge like that. Then what else did we have? We had these grassy type. Now this one, I'm not sure whether I cut enough out of it, but let's see. It's always difficult with a jagged brush because on a watercolour brush there are so many hairs, you never really know if you've cut out enough. So this one is a sort of splayed and like this brush. So this might be good for grasses. Oops. So I'm just going to, well, you can see where it's broken there, can't you? And obviously the more paint you've got on your brush, the more detail it will leave behind. So let's just get rid of some of the paint and use it almost like a dry brush and try it again. Here we go. Just lightly touching the paper. So again, because this is, but you can see that's leaving multiple marks rather than a single mark. So if you're using a detail brush, you have to make multiple efforts. Whereas with something like this, it's in one stroke almost. Now this is the next one. I can still see there's some hairs being left behind here. You can see them on the thing. So make sure you pull the hairs to get them all out before you use them on a painting. So this one I chopped a little bit more severely like this. Okay. So again, you can see that it's very broken, but not massively. So I wonder if it will be any different to the one that we've just used. Okay, let's see. Well, yeah. It's still leaving quite a lot of paint on it because it's got so many hairs. But if you separate the hairs like this, you're going to get more of an impression of what you would get. So there we go. That's pretty good. I like that. Now it's drying off. You can see how useful that would be for your grasses. Okay. Okay. So have fun with your brushes and cut some up and see what sort of detail brush. You save yourself such a lot of money. The next bit I'm going to show you is just how a handful of my brushes that have already been bought as specialist brushes, and I'm going to sort of show you how much they are and what they cost and how to make them. Okay, so the first one is a Chinese brush. Lovely brush. Chinese brush. I've got the smooth and the rough paper again, and I just want to show you the difference. So that's Chinese brush. If I just put that there, and then you can see them. I've got a Hake brush, and this is for laying down lots of colour all at once. So I'm just going to pick up. So you might use this for laying your washes for your sky, but it's a huge brush and it will leave a block of colour all at once, and it just removes that worry of leaving lines behind by your brush because you're applying it all at once. This is the bought angled brush. So this brush would be, I don't know, maybe £5–6, something like that. And you can see it's not much different to the one I just made. Angle brush. Square brush. Oops. Square brush. Lovely square edge. Again, if you've got excess round brushes, you can make square brushes out of them. Stipple brush. You can make this brush, this type of brush, very easily from old brushes just by chopping off the end or using a very old tired acrylic brush. Now this one is like a dagger almost, not quite, but like one. It's an acrylic brush because it's white. It's just got an angle cut into it, but it leaves a much thicker mark because it's an acrylic brush. Oh, fan brush. Right, the fan brush is a really good one. Okay, it's a really good brush to have. I'm going to run out of space here. I'm just going to do one mark. Again, you can do grasses with this. Really good brush. Again, you can make those out of old square brushes, like something like this, just by hacking into and cutting out large areas of hair so that you just have individual blocks of hair. Okay, and then you've got other brushes like this, which I won't demonstrate because it's huge. You know, there are millions on the market. You've got fine liner brushes. Let me just put a mark or two on here of a fine liner. Again, you can use the tips to make dots. And so on. Lots of different ones on the market. And then you've just got your normal standard round brushes, some with points, some more rounded. And then you've got lots and lots of other implements that you can use. So really get to know your brushes. And like I said, if you haven't got all these specialist brushes, just make them. You know, this is, you know, these are very similar to the marks that we've made here. So you don't have to go splashing all your cash and by buying new brushes, which are anywhere between £5 and £10 a pop. Okay, enjoy your brushes and see you next time. If you've got any questions, just ask. I will reply. If you've got any brushes that you want advice on, then just ask. Send me comments, press like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.